Good morning, Asean. Freshen up your world, your thought, and your idea with us every weekday from 7:30 to 8 a.m. I'm Patsurang Desha Putharangsi.
It's Wednesday, the 12th of June, and we now Jong Prasit.
Yes, so Vietnam's communist leaders finally have survived a first ever confidence vote held as historic by the state press, but dismissed as a sham by pro-democracy activists. The vote, to be held every year, is seen by observers as an attempt by the authoritarian regime to ease growing public discontent over a lack of accountability and corruption in the one-party state. All 47 officials secured the 50% support needed from members of the communist-controlled parliament in Monday's ballot to avoid possible future disciplinary measures. But about one-third of lawmakers voiced low confidence in Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Duc's premiership, which has been tainted by a string of corruption scandals and worries over his handling of the ailing economy. The central bank governor received low confidence votes from more than 40% of lawmakers. According to state media, officials who failed to win support from at least half of parliamentarians for 2 consecutive years may be forced to resign. The vote was hailed as historic, however, by the official Vietnam news agency, but prominent pro-democracy campaigners dismissed the exercise as a charade. Many observers have predicted that top officials would close ranks behind the scenes to support each other regardless of performance. The Communist Party tightly controls public debate and routinely imprison dissidents who question the political system or call for change.
Vietnam spares no effort to improve its investment climate and support foreign investors, including those from the United States, in doing business. This statement was made by Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Duc during a reception yesterday for David Quote, a member of the U.S. National Commission on Fiscal Responsibility and Reform, and also the chairman and CEO of Honeywell. The Prime Minister said he was pleased at the strong development in Vietnam-U.S. relations in recent years. He added that Vietnam, the U.S., and several other countries were engaged in talks on the Trans-Pacific Strategic Economic Partnership, or the TPP, and called on U.S. leaders and enterprises to back the process. Cote replied that he would convey the Prime Minister's messages to his country's leaders and hope Vietnam will facilitate U.S. firms' investment and long-term business in the country. Honeywell, which has been in Vietnam since 2005, is one of the world's leading suppliers of aerospace products and services, turbochargers, technologies for specialized materials, and oil refinement.
Let's look at what's happening in Myanmar, as Myanmar's immigration minister has just recently expressed support for a controversial 2-child policy on a Muslim minority group, the Rohingyas, that opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi and the United Nations call discriminatory and a violation of human rights. Minister of Immigration and Population Kin Yi is the most senior official to publicly support the recently announced enforcement by local authorities of a 2-child policy in northwestern Rakhine State for Rohingya Muslims, a stateless minority termed Bengalis by the Myanmar government. His comments coincide with mounting international concern over the treatment of minority Muslims in a majority Buddhist country, following outbreaks of communal violence that have killed hundreds of people since last year and made more than 140,000 mostly Muslims homeless. Continued religious tensions pose among the biggest challenges for the reformist government that replaced the military junta in March 2001.
Still in Myanmar, Kumpasurang, its national carrier will have ticket prices for workers who want to return from Malaysia from their work as they face growing violence there. Well, Myanmar Airlines International's marketing manager, Myanmar Tar, said that the discount will run from June 12 to July 12 and be available only to citizens working in Malaysia. Clashes between overseas Myanmar Buddhist and Rohingya communities resulted in up to 6 deaths last week and hundreds of arrests, according to sources in Malaysia. The sectarian fighting has spread from Rakhine State in western Myanmar, where violence between Buddhist and Rohingya Muslim communities claimed up to 200 lives last year and displaced some 125,000 people. There are an estimated 500,000 Myanmar laborers in Malaysia, of whom some 30,000 are Rohingyas. Myanmar charities are also gearing up to help the workers in Malaysia. The AIRLINE Foundation plans to provide free air tickets for 1,000 workers to return home. Kanbaza Bank would also donate money to cover the funeral services of the slain Myanmar laborers in Malaysia.
Kunana VIETNAMESE interviewed Mr. Heang Chhor, a senior partner Mckensey&Company in Singapore, for factors of growth and challenges for Myanmar. Let's see in Myanmar Focus Daily.
The World Economic Forum on East Asia in Naypyidaw, Myanmar, our program Myanmar Focus Daily has an opportunity to speak with a senior partner of Mckensey&Company on the factors that could drive and deter the growth of Myanmar after the company has recently launched a report stating that Myanmar's economy could quadruple by the year of 2030. The question is whether this projection is overestimated or not.
We believe that Myanmar could quadruple its economy and reach roughly $200 billion by 2030. This is a trajectory that other countries have followed in the past. For example, Thailand between 82 and 96 have gone through the same quadrupling of its GDP per capita. Same way, Indonesia between 88 and 2002. So this is not something that is impossible. Some other countries have done that already.
What are the factors that could drive the growth for Myanmar?
Myanmar has first to diversify its economic base. Today, the country's economy is very much focused on agriculture and energy and mining. In the future, in order to reach that potential, we believe that Myanmar could get into manufacturing much more dynamically, as well as infrastructure and services such as banking, telecom, consumer services, and of course, tourism. We think that manufacturing will help to create at least 6 million jobs. It will account for 1/3 of the economy by 2030. Likewise, tourism can account for $14 billion of revenue and have 2.5 million people working in the sector.
What about the factors that could deter the growth?
The country today is a quite small economy, as you know, right? And it is coming out of several decades of isolation. There's a number of challenges that the country is facing: political stability, the need for putting in place the right regulation, the need to enhance the skills level. Also, the fact that the country needs so much infrastructure, basic infrastructure such as electricity and telecoms and road. So there's a number of things that the country has to put in place before considering moving into that growth trajectory. However, we think that Myanmar is not different from other emerging markets. Any investor looking at Myanmar would apply the same criteria as it applies in other emerging markets.
Can the exact same method be applied, or is there any different than other emerging markets?
The main difference, I guess, is that Myanmar today has to address a triple challenge: putting in place a stable political situation, ensuring that there's a peaceful context in the country, and opening up its economy to attract foreign investors, put in place best practices, and of course grow the economy. So those are three big challenges that have to be addressed at the same time in parallel. So that is an uneasy challenge. The main obstacle could potentially be the lack of resource. Today, Myanmar does not have enough skillful people. The average schooling year, according to UNDP, is 4 years. It's not a lot. But in big cities like Yangon, there are many more skillful people. So there's a number of resources that Myanmar could build on in order to go on this quite dynamic growth trajectory.
The challenges that you mentioned that they should be solved in parallel, how should Myanmar prioritize to solve those challenges?
We believe that Myanmar can develop quickly a blueprint, meaning a set of actions that the country leaders, government, but also business leaders could take in order to put in place the platform for growth. As I said, basic infrastructure, regulation, launching a massive vocational and training program to sustain the credibility with foreign investors. Foreign international community, the international community is very much supportive to Myanmar today. So Myanmar should really leverage that, turn that into a opportunity to grow.
In the next episode of Myanmar Focus Daily, we will take a look at how Mckensey sees the future of Myanmar and whether the company thinks that Myanmar could become Asia's next tiger.
Indonesia lacks skilled laborers. Come back for that story after the break.
International companies have reported $1.9 billion in losses incurred in fruitless exploration for deep-sea hydrocarbon reserves offshore Indonesia since 2009. A dozen production-sharing contractors have drilled 25 deep-sea wells in 16 blocks since the year, but they still haven't discovered oil and gas reserves that can be developed commercially. So according to Asean, the Indonesian upstream oil and gas regulator, said in a news release that among companies that have tried and failed to find deep-sea reserves offshore Indonesia are ExxonMobil Corporation, Statoil, ConocoPhillips, Talisman Energy Incorporation, Marathon Oil Corporation, Japan Petroleum Exploration, CNOOC Limited, Hess Corporation, Nikko Resources Limited, and Murphy Oil Corporation. So some of that contractors will return the blocks to the government, Kotama said, without specifying which ones. Indonesia's oil reserves, estimated at 3.6 million barrels, will be depleted over the next decade if no new major discoveries are made. He also added that the former member of the organization and the petroleum exporting countries is struggling to arrest the fall in its crude oil production, as most of the country's existing wells are already mature. Some oil companies have been cautious in committing to new investments in Indonesia, citing a lack of regulatory clarity. Indonesia must be careful in maintaining the investment climate in the upstream oil and gas sector because it takes a lot of money and risk-taking capacity to discover new oil and gas reserves.
Although Indonesia's economy continues to grow at a steady pace, the businesses are finding it hard to get the right people to fill the jobs for higher skilled positions and fear that the situation may even get worse. Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs Hatta Rajasa sounded the alarm in a speech at the country's leading university late last month, lamenting that undergraduates did not seem keen on studying engineering and hard sciences, but opted for subjects like politics instead. Officials and investors have drawn up plans for ambitious projects from new airports to advanced manufacturing plants. Indonesia had produced only 164 engineers for every 1 million people, less than half of that in its neighbors like Malaysia and Vietnam, where it could have a crisis of engineers by 2025. His concern is echoed in two recent reports that outline the huge leaps Southeast Asia's largest economy has to make to fix its pipeline of talent if it wants to stay competitive in the years to come. A key hurdle they noted is the quality of higher education and training. But observers say the problem will remain so long as issues like low pay for academics and heavy government regulation remain. The Indonesian government has been recently criticized on the budget allocation of 13 times more funding to subsidize fuel and electricity, while accounts to 44% of GDP than 0.3% that went to higher education. In a bid to stem the brain drain and lift standards, Indonesia's parliament last year passed a law to allow foreign universities and private education providers to set up campuses here. But the law is being challenged in the Constitutional Court by critics who say this will benefit the rich and fear an influx of foreign influences.
Now let's look at how the Philippine government has managed with the confiscated elephant tusks.
Yes.
Just recently, the report said the government would destroy 5 tons of confiscated elephant tusks as part of a global campaign to raise awareness against the illegal trade of so-called blood ivories. So the seized tusks represent a portion of the 13.1 tons of Tanzanian elephant tusks seized in 2005 and 2009 that are kept in a government vault. So Protected Areas and Wildlife Bureau head Teresa Mundita Lim said this action is meant to send a message that the Philippines is against the illegal trade of ivory and the merciless massacre of elephants. The haul will be crushed using a road roller and burned in front of anti-ivory trade advocates next week as the country works to shed its image as a major transport hub for illegal ivories. The Philippines is a signatory to the Geneva-based Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna, or CITES, which bans the trade of ivory in a bid to combat drastic declines in the numbers of elephant population in Africa. It cited the Philippines as among 9 countries considered as priority concerns because they were used as a smuggling hub for illegal ivories. The maximum penalty for possessing illegal ivory in the Philippines is 4 years in jail.
Next up is a special report on Thailand planning to become a renewable energy hub in ASEAN. Let's take a look.
Unlike Myanmar and Laos, Thailand is a net importer of many kinds of energies. The country is obliged to find solutions to support the high demands of energy consumption to be less dependent on energy import in the wake of energy crisis. With the government policies on a comprehensive promotional package encouraging investors to invest in the renewable energy sector, Thailand has clearly shown that it wants to be the hub for renewable energy with its target to reduce energy use of more than 20% in the next 10 years.
The reason is because Thailand has the most advanced policy on renewable energy in the ASEAN region. Thailand has made a public statement that by 2022, the year, Thailand will have 25% of the energy from renewables, and which is extremely positive. And if you look at the policies of the Thai government right now and from the past, we are ahead of schedule. So that's very positive. So that makes Thailand itself a very important market for renewable energy because of the policies. Secondly, other countries in the region can come and learn from Thailand. And in the process, Thai companies can actually expand their services. For example, there are many Thai companies here are very good in providing consultancy for implementation of solar farms. They have already experienced here. Why not they expand it, in providing the same service to Indonesia or Vietnam or Myanmar? In that sense, for under the AEC, the vision of AEC, Thai companies can expand their market from 70 or 60 million to 600 million population.
While fossil fuel is declining, oil price seems to surge. Therefore, renewable energy is very important for the future development of the country, especially when it comes to investment. The government will focus more on the smaller scale of renewable energy facilitation, such as solar rooftop for households and biogas for transportation. Until now, Thailand has the most advanced renewable energy policy in ASEAN.
That would be incentivize investor to invest in the ASEAN region. But I foresee that in ASEAN, the most prominent renewable energy resources still are the hydropower as well as geothermals in the country that has potentials, but also in the Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia and Vietnam. In this particular region, probably bio-based energy is still number one. Bio-based energy would mean biomass, biogas, biofuels, and municipal waste. If there is a policy that could help incentivize the investment, I foresee that there would be a lot of opportunities in the bio-based energy in ASEAN. Yes, Thailand probably lead the way. We have demonstrated that the way we done how to reduce risk and for the investor, and how to incentivize to make sure that investor get the appropriate return, and the country would still get the good price energy into our grid.
Renewable energy development as well as the promotion of energy efficiency are the two major pillars that would forge ahead for sustainability in ASEAN for both investment in renewable energy and efficiency. This will be the key sectors that would bring ASEAN into the sustainable level for development in the future. Nirasha Malisaklami reports.
That's it for today's edition of Good Morning ASEAN. We'll see you again, same time, same place, same channel.
Catch us again from 7:30 to 8 a.m. on Krungthep Thurakit TV and Veena Jongprasit.
And I'm Patsurang Desha Puttarangsi. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ